Welcome back to the deep dive. I've always been kind of fascinated by this whole idea of happiness, like what it actually is, how we find it.
Right.
And if we're even any good at knowing what'll make us happy in the first place.
Yeah, it's a question that's puzzled philosophers and scientists for like centuries.
Right.
And, today we're going to be diving into some groundbreaking research that sheds light on this pursuit of happiness.
Exactly. And to guide us on this deep dive, we're turning to psychologist Daniel Gilbert and his book, Stumbling on Happiness.
Great book.
So good. And he argues that, we often stumble not because happiness is like unattainable,
Right.
but because our brains have some quirky ways of predicting what will bring us joy.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the core ideas that Gilbert explores in the book is this concept of misimagining the future.
Misimagining the future.
Yeah, we often think we know what will make us happy, but our brains, they kind of like fill in the details and create these narratives that don't always match up with reality.
Okay, so let's put this to the test.
Okay.
Imagine you've just won $1 million.
Right.
Picture it. Financial freedom, travel, all the things you've ever dreamed of. I mean, it feels pretty amazing, right?
It does. It's that common scenario we use to kind of envision happiness.
Right.
But, Gilbert actually challenges this assumption with a really fascinating contrast.
Yeah.
He brings up this case of Adolf Fischer.
Adolf Fischer, okay.
He was a labor activist who was wrongly convicted of murder.
Oh.
And even when he was facing execution, Fischer claimed to be happy.
Wow.
And then on the flip side, you have George Eastman, the inventor of the Kodak camera, who, despite his wealth and success, tragically committed suicide.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful juxtaposition.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, why our intuitive assumptions about happiness, like $1 million equals bliss, and facing execution equals despair, don't always hold up.
Yeah, it really highlights the limitations of our future predicting abilities.
Yeah.
Gilbert uses a study about a stop sign to illustrate this.
Okay.
So participants watched this video of a car, and they were later asked seemingly, kind of innocuous questions, right? Did another car pass the red car while it was stopped at the stop sign?
Oh, I'm sensing a trick question here.
Exactly.
Okay.
The video actually showed a yield sign.
Oh.
Not a stop sign.
Wow.
But the way that the questions were worded led many participants to falsely remember seeing a stop sign.
Oh, wow.
So their brains essentially filled in the gaps based on that suggestion that was kind of implanted by the question.
So our memories aren't these perfect recordings of the past?
Yeah.
They're susceptible to manipulation and suggestion.
Yeah. And what's even more fascinating is this filling in tendency extends beyond memory.
Oh, really?
It also plays a role in how we perceive the world around us right now.
That reminds me of the optical illusion of the blind spot.
Yes.
We all have a spot on our retina where we literally can't see anything because of the optic nerve.
Right.
But we don't walk around with a gaping hole in our vision.
Exactly. Our brains seamlessly fill in that missing visual information based on the surrounding context.
Right.
So we perceive this complete picture, even though a part of it is literally fabricated by our brains.
Wow. So we're constantly constructing our reality, both in terms of what we remember and what we see.
Yes. And here's the crucial link to happiness.
Okay.
This same filling in phenomenon happens when we imagine the future. So when we picture ourselves winning the lottery, our brains fill in those details, the emotions, the experience of the lifestyle, often based on incomplete or inaccurate information.
So it's like our brains are creating these elaborate movie trailers.
Exactly.
For our future happiness, but the actual film might be a completely different genre.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's true.
Okay, so it's like we're creating these highlight reels of future happiness, right? And then we make all these big decisions based on these potentially misleading trailers.
Right.
It makes me wonder, how can we even begin to accurately assess what will truly make us happy?
It's a complex question for sure.
Yeah.
And Gilbert delves into the nature of happiness itself in the book.
Okay.
He distinguishes emotional happiness, that visceral feeling of joy or contentment, from other types of happiness, like moral happiness or judgmental happiness.
So feeling joyful about something is a lot different than just judging it as good.
Exactly.
Or morally, right?
Yeah. And when it comes to measuring emotional happiness, we face another challenge. Everyone experiences and describes emotions in different ways.
Right.
Like, my thrilled might feel very different from your thrilled,
right,
making it tough to compare and study.
Yeah, it's like we're all speaking slightly different dialects of happiness.
Yeah.
So how do researchers even begin to study something
Right.
that's so subjective and nuanced?
Gilbert discusses something called the language squishing hypothesis.
Language squishing hypothesis.
Yeah, it suggests that people with limited experiences might have fewer words and less nuanced ways to describe happiness.
Okay.
Like, imagine someone who's never tasted chocolate before,
Okay.
trying to express the delight of that experience.
Right.
Their vocabulary for describing pleasure might be pretty limited.
Right.
Compared to someone who's like savored all that richness and complexity.
That's a fascinating concept.
It is.
It makes you think, like, if our ability to even articulate happiness is shaped by the range of experiences that we had.
And it raises a really interesting question.
What's that?
Does a limited range of experiences necessarily mean less happiness?
Okay.
Or could it actually intensify the happiness that we get from, like, simpler pleasures?
That's a surprising thought.
It is.
Because if you've never traveled the world,
Yeah.
a simple walk in the park might feel incredibly fulfilling.
Exactly. This idea is called the experience stretching hypothesis.
Experience stretching hypothesis.
When our range of experiences is limited, the joy that we get from simpler things might actually be magnified.
I see.
Like, think about how much you appreciate a glass of water after being lost in the desert.
Totally. So our happiness is somewhat relative to our experiences and expectations.
Yes.
It's not just about achieving some objective level of good stuff.
Absolutely. And this ties into another fascinating concept that Gilbert explores.
Okay.
Change blindness.
Change blindness.
Studies have shown that people often fail to notice significant changes in their surroundings if they're not paying attention.
Yeah, I've seen those videos where they swap out a person in the middle of a conversation and the other person doesn't even notice.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Like, we can be looking right at something and completely miss a major change.
Right.
And Gilbert suggests that this blindness
might extend to our emotional experiences as well.
Oh, so you mean like we might be blind to subtle shifts
It's possible.
in our own happiness?
We might get so fixated on some, idealized future vision of happiness that we don't notice those subtle ebbs and flows of joy in our present lives.
So not only are we prone to misimagining the future, we might also be misinterpreting or even missing out on the happiness that's already present in our lives.
Exactly. And that brings us back to, like, the central challenge here.
Okay.
How do we navigate these blind spots
Right.
and make choices that lead to genuine, lasting happiness?
Seems like we're up against some pretty powerful forces here. Like,
Yeah.
our brains are filling in gaps and creating narratives and even potentially blinding us to the happiness that's, like, already in our lives. So how do we break free from these patterns and make choices that are more likely to actually lead to, like, genuine fulfillment? Well, one key strategy Gilbert emphasizes is cultivating mindfulness.
Mindfulness, okay.
Yeah, like paying attention to our present experiences without judgment.
Okay.
And this helps us become more aware of, like, our actual feelings and less swayed by those inaccurate predictions of our imagination.
So it's about shifting our focus from, like, the what-ifs of the future to the what is of right now.
The present moment, exactly.
And just savoring those simple joys that are often right in front of us.
Exactly. And by becoming more present-focused, we can start to notice those subtle shifts in our happiness levels. The things that genuinely bring us joy, rather than getting caught up in the pursuit of some idealized future that may never even happen.
It's funny. We often talk about happiness as if it's this destination we need to reach. But what if it's more like a dance?
I like that.
A constant ebb and flow of experiences and emotions and perspectives.
Beautiful analogy. It really highlights the importance of embracing that full spectrum of human experience. The highs and the lows, the joys and the sorrows.
So instead of always chasing some elusive, perfect happiness, we should maybe focus more on cultivating, like, a more mindful and accepting relationship with our own emotional landscape.
Precisely. And this doesn't mean that we should, like, abandon planning for the future altogether. But rather that we should approach it with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Okay.
Recognizing that our predictions about the future are just that. Predictions, not guarantees.
So it's about finding that balance between planning for the future and being present, and just being aware of our brain's tendencies without letting them dictate every decision we make.
And by becoming more aware of these tendencies, we can start to make choices that are more aligned with our values and aspirations. Choices that are more likely to lead to that genuine and lasting fulfillment.
It's almost like we're being given this new set of lenses to view our own happiness through lenses that account for all of our brain's quirks and help us to see the world and ourselves with more clarity and compassion.
And that new perspective can be so empowering. By understanding the potential for misimagining, we can start to question those assumptions we make about the future. You know, we can ask ourselves, what details have I filled in? Could I be like overestimating the intensity or duration of this future happiness?
So it's about becoming more discerning about those like future narratives we create. And not letting our imaginations run wild with these like unrealistic expectations.
Exactly. We can acknowledge like the allure of those fantasies. But also remember that reality might serve up something different. Maybe even better.
Totally.
You know, we can learn to appreciate those unexpected detours. The moments that surprise us with genuine joy.
I love that. It's such a good reminder that happiness is often found in the unexpected, in the messy, imperfect moments that make up a life well lived.
And by recognizing that we can become more active editors of our own narratives.
It's good.
You know, we can challenge those assumptions, fill in those gaps with more realistic details, and even create multiple what-if scenarios to prepare ourselves for different possibilities.
So we're not just passively accepting the stories our brains are creating. They're actively shaping them, making them more nuanced and more grounded in reality.
And that's where the real power lies.
I like that.
By understanding the science of happiness, we gain more control over our own experiences. We become more intentional about the choices we make, the experiences we seek, and the stories we tell ourselves about our lives.
So to wrap things up, is there one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with today?
The most important lesson Gilbert offers is this. While our brains might play tricks, becoming aware of these tendencies gives us more control over our happiness.
I like that.
By understanding our blind spots, we can make choices that lead to genuine, lasting fulfillment.
And on that note, I'll leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question. Think about a future event that you're looking forward to. What details have you already filled in? Could you be misimagining the experience? Could there be some hidden delights just waiting to surprise you?
Remember, the journey to happiness is rarely a straight line. Embrace those unexpected detours, savor the simple joys, and never underestimate the power of your own mind to shape your experience.